It's the Umayyad Ages during the 7th century in Arabia. Famous poet and singer Al-Drami had achieved celebrity status for his flirtatious poetry, only to reportedly disappoint Arab women by retiring. Afterwards, Al-Drami traveled to Medina, where he bumped into an old acquaintance of his selling abayas. This merchant sold every variety of colors and had only black abayas left to sell. Yet, it seemed that no Arab woman was interested in a black abaya. So the merchant asked Al-Drami for his help. Al-Drami returned to poetry to recite merely 2 verses, which he asked boys to repeat all across town. Call upon her, the fine woman in the black abaya, for what has she done to a humble worshipper? He has just gotten ready for his prayers until she stood there for him at the gate of the temple. The word spread that Al-Drami had gone back to poetry because of his lust for a woman in a black abaya. And just like that, not only did the merchant sell all his black abayas, but black abayas became the trendiest color until this date, 1,300 years later. Arab women eagerly bought black abayas in reaction to the promise that they can win the admiration of Al-Drami. Clearly that promise wasn't realized. Was such a promise a blunt lie? And shouldn't the disappointment have stopped Arab women from buying black abayas? To this date, what still drives Arab women to keep buying black abayas is the same human motivation that drives every consumer to keep buying their favorite brands. And it's a human motivation that is essential to our well-being. It is what psychologists call optimism bias, and it is defined as the belief that the future will be much better than the past and present. This could be found among every race, region, and socioeconomic bracket. Well, apparently 80% of humans are in fact optimists, or to be more precise, biasly optimistic. It is as Samuel Johnson wrote, "The triumph of hope over experience." Throughout our evolutionary history, we have developed this optimism bias as a survival technique. The optimism toward the future, with some bias towards one's own individual future, is needed for our own basic survival. It is also needed for our own well-being and happiness. The lead scholar on this subject is Tali Sharot. In her book, The Optimism Bias, A Tour of the Irrationally Positive Brain, Sharot argues that even if the better future humans optimistically and biasly draw for themselves is frequently an illusion, optimism has apparent benefits in the present. Research has shown that this hopeful thinking keeps the human mind at ease. It lowers stress and improves one's physical health. Optimism can go as far as helping humans fight fatal diseases. For example, studies of cancer patients have shown that patients under the age of 60 who are pessimistic were more likely to die within 8 months than non-pessimistic patients. Further research has shown that being accurate about anticipating your future leads to mild depression. According to Sharot, in the absence of a neural mechanism that generates unrealistic optimism, it is possible all humans would be mildly depressed. It is this same irrational yet hopeful thinking that drives Arab women to keep buying black abayas. But could it be that advertising has this effect on our well-being? Well, fMRI studies have proven that seeing the Coke brand and consuming the product ignites positive emotions of happiness versus doing the same with Pepsi. And that is because Coke's advertising triggers such happiness. The same study showed that being exposed to the Apple brand, along with its messages, ignited positive emotions of empathy versus no positive emotions when doing the same with Samsung. As humans, we are a hopeful species, irrationally seeking the anticipation of a better future. This is critical to our well-being. Accordingly, at its ideal best, advertising is able to play a role in preserving our well-being. And if we're being idealistic about the potential role of advertising, Then how about we explore if advertising can even help alter our future for the better? Neuroscientist Sarah Bengtson conducted an experiment in which she manipulated positive and negative expectations of students while they were about to be tested. She has done so while scanning their brains. Now, in order to encourage expectations of success, she pumped up students with encouraging messages such as smart. To put other students down, she used words like stupid. Students performed better after being pumped up, confirming that such affirmative messages can in fact alter one's future for the better. Affirmative messages coming from a brand's advertisement can have the same effect as messages from Bengtson to her students. The same fMRI studies at Duke University showed that students who have been exposed to the Apple brand have performed better at creative tasks than students exposed to the Samsung brand. Apple's advertising encouraged people to think different and made them actually do better at creative tasks. In a similar manner, Dove's advertising encouraged women to embrace their natural beauty, and this made 71% of women who watched the ad feel more beautiful. And Always' advertising challenged womanhood's cultural stereotypes, which have been killing the confidence of girls hitting puberty. As a result, 70% of women and 60% of men who watched the ads changed their perceptions of the stereotype to do something like a girl. We know that Arab women don't buy black abayas for their functionality. They also don't buy them to win the admiration of somebody like Aldrami. They buy them for the positive state of mind that optimism bias creates for them. And such a positive state of mind was made possible through Aldrami's beautiful poetry. Psychology tells us that being in such a positive state of mind is an essential human need. And we have seen that it is not what is realized through the product that puts people in that state of mind. It's the anticipation that is built through the brand and its beautiful advertising. Today, regardless of how hectic the actual process of traveling is, an ad by a brand like Emirates Airlines makes the anticipation of our next trip positively joyful. And while the trip is only for days or weeks, such anticipation could last for months. Let's not call for advertising to only create illusions, but also consider its deeper positive impact. As hopeful species living in free markets, we seek brands to optimistically anticipate a more positive future. At its best, advertising can clearly have a positive effect in this. If an industry is defined by its best work, then the role of advertising ought to be to strive to preserve our well-being in the present and help us alter our future for the better. Why not?